Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Babbling Irons preview show with myself and Sloth. It's Chelsea at home. It's the 12:30 kickoff. It's the one Chelsea fans actually dread because we've got a pretty good record at home to Chelsea at the London Stadium in recent seasons. I think we've only lost twice at the London Stadium to Chelsea, so we've got a pretty good record there since moving in 2016. But we're going to break it down. So if you enjoy, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, plenty more analysis coming this season. And let's get into it just with a stats overview, Sloth, because Chelsea last season, they were obviously definitely underperforming. So far this season, they've got 7 points from 4 games. We're on 4 points. They've scored 3 more goals than us. They've conceded 1 less goal than us. And they're currently in 8th spot compared to our 14th. Also looking at the expected stats. So you can see here they're slightly above their expected threshold, same as us. So we have more points than we were expected, same as Chelsea. Our expected goals scored is around 5.97, Chelsea 7. We've actually got one of the worst expected goals against in the league at around 10.13 from our opening four games, which we'll touch on in a bit. Chelsea's is about half of that at 5.6. And our expected position, we should be 16th and Chelsea should be 11th. So we've both overperformed in terms of the statistics so far from a small sample set. But Maresca, Chelsea, lots of moving parts. We've spoke very, very advertly about Chelsea and their transfer strategies in recent seasons. What do you make of Chelsea right now as a football club? And don't just say you hate them.
Oh, it's a tricky one, isn't it? Like, I know lots of Chelsea fans. I don't like digging out football clubs. I know it sounds really weird. The only football club that I think I really don't like is Millwall. And it's more a case of I find how they're being run baffling. But I know Chelsea fans, a lot of them feel the same way. And I can make head nor tails over a lot of their transfer activity, like who they're targeting, why they're targeting them. They always buy well. They always seem to buy well, bar 1 or 2 drafts a window. But hidden amongst the pure number of players they sign, it doesn't ever really seem to matter too much. And of course, it helps when you're able to kind of cook the books like they are. I'm not saying cook the books in like a really negative way, but when you can sell a hotel to yourself and get away with it, then it's kind of irrelevant what you do in terms of finances elsewhere. You could sell that hotel to yourself for 110 million pounds and completely offset everything, in terms of one window. So it is frustrating, particularly when they seem to be treating the players that they bring through the academy so poorly.
Conor Gallagher's a prime example of that, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I've been critical. I don't want to seem like I'm just lambasting Chelsea. I've been very critical of how a lot of teams treat their players. PSG are a prime example of they sign players and then suddenly they cast them out and they end up in what's called a loft, basically PSG's loft, which I think is a bit creepy, but like it's when they're basically ousted from the first team. And I feel like Chelsea are just becoming the club that if you value your career, you would really second guess going there. Unless what you want is basically a stupidly long contract and big wages, because look, it's a great football club. I'm not saying it's not, but just the ownership at the moment seems to be completely baffling. And I think they've got a very strong group of players, but they've also got about 700 players. So it's a very tough one to kind of analyze when there are so many moving parts to this jigsaw piece.
100%. It is very difficult, isn't it? It makes our job a lot tougher when they've got about 50 players to pick from. But I know, obviously, Maresca's come in. He said he's got the set squad that he's working with. It's not that amount. And, he's trying to niche it down a little bit. They do have a few injuries as well, which we'll touch on later on. But I wanted to touch on kind of Chelsea so far this season and what we can expect from them on Saturday and where we need to be careful areas we can exploit, and how they currently set up under Maresca, and whether you've been impressed so far during his Leicester spell and also in the opening kind of 4 games at Chelsea in the Premier League. So what we can see when they're kind of defending, they will play this kind of block 2, which is a 4-4-2 effectively. And Cole Palmer will be in that kind of number 10 position, which we actually don't see that much in modern football, which I quite like again with what Maresca's doing. You know, he'll play a very fluid system, but when they're defending, Cole Palmer's not going to be the one, you know, doing that industrial work. He's going to be almost playing in that 4-4-2 shape alongside the striker, whether that's Jackson playing there. So defensively, they pretty set in how they like to set out. However, when they've got luxury players on the wing that, like they do, that aren't the most industrious, say like a Bowen or a Kudus, it does leave them a little bit vulnerable in transition, number one, which was a massive problem for them against Bournemouth. And number two, it just causes a lot of issues when you play through, if they're trying to press and playing through that midfield, which can be quite weak if they're going to play a double pivot of Caicedo and Viega. It's easier to get through than it has been in, you know, seasons gone past when you think of Chelsea midfields and how difficult they were to get through. And what do you think of Maresca's defensive shape with Chelsea? And, you know, almost saying to Cole Palmer, stay as the number 10, we'll defend, do a little bit of defensive work, but you're going to be kind of the outlet and the main link between our transitions when we get the ball as well.
I think when you've got outstandingly talented attackers, it's always going to be, they're always going to be fun to watch. That's the thing. But they're always going to create chances. And it's funny because I associate Chelsea like normally with having outstanding defenses, and maybe that's just because I grew up when John Terry was you know, the Captain Liga legend as such. But you know, it's one of those things where I've always associated Chelsea of having at least a very strong back line, and I think he's setting them up to be a very fluid and progressive back line. So it's something that I'm not as used to. And even when they had David Luiz, it was a bit more flamboyant and unpredictable. Yeah. They were at least kind of balanced out with the likes of Ivanovic or more sort of defensive players around them. So it's a very interesting setup. And as we'll look into, you know, Cucurella is just an incredibly fluid player, but that will hopefully give West Ham chances. And I think that when you have aggressive defenders of outstanding quality in terms of their technical ability, it's almost as if Levi Colwell's going to be that more defensive-minded centre-back. Yeah. And whichever of their 30 centre-backs they have available, you know. I mean, the list is ridiculous when you toss in Adebayo, Disasi. It's obscene, and you know, I think the talent there, if they choose to set up with a more defensive one like Disasi, who's not necessarily the best decision maker but is more defensive minded, then I think it balances it out nicely. But it all, as I said, depends on what they want to do. And the key point I was going to make was that when you are so fluid and technically capable on the ball, linking that defense into the attack is almost seamless.
Yeah. No, 100% has its positives when they have possession. And, you know, we've already seen under Maresca for Chelsea that they are going to be that team that, do you say, like inverting Cucurella, going to play in the midfield, keeping their left winger on the touchline wide, trying to play out from positions like this when they have a goal kick. You know, how often we're now seeing, I think it's extremely rare to see a team punt the ball from a goal kick now. I think every team, even if you go down the leagues to sort of League One, League Two, everyone's kind of adopted this system of playing out from the back. And it's no different with Maresca. You can see here against Bournemouth, Levi Colwill, who is playing left centre-back, passes the ball to Sanchez. Sanchez moves it across to Fofana, the other centre-back. Disasi, who is playing right back, the ball goes into him. And they did this a few times, Chelsea. And I know why they're trying to do it. It's because they've got the kind of inversion that we mentioned on the other side. So again, if I just bring this back up one more time, you'll be able to see exactly what it is. So once the ball comes to Disasi, they're looking for that ball into either Cole Palmer, who's drifting into, you know, between the lines of the midfield, which we're going to have to be careful of if Chelsea get a goal kick like this situation. And then they've got massive amounts of space over on the left-hand side because they've drawn you over to the right-hand side. And that then leaves space for someone like Sancho, Neto, whoever's going to be playing that 1v1 dribbler role on the left-hand side. And obviously Cole Palmer is going to be that link between it. So it's going to be interesting because we've seen Lopetegui and West Ham try and press teams so far this season in moments. We saw it against Fulham where, you know, it almost resulted in a Fulham penalty because the press was almost executed well, but, you know, a small mistake and they were in. Chelsea have the technical players, like you say, to hurt you in transition if you don't get the press right. So we're going to have to be careful if we are pressing, say, from a goal kick like that. We're going to have to make sure that those spaces don't open up and we don't leave Cole Palmer free roaming because he's going to be the key person for them. I really, really rate Cole Palmer as a footballer. He's very intelligent and he'll keep picking up those spaces between the lines. So does that concern you at all? You know, given Chelsea building out from the back, we're probably going to be at, you know, we're at home. The expectancy on us is going to be to press and be on the front foot as much as we can. Do we risk maybe opening up a little bit too much because of just how good, you know, how many good technical players Chelsea have on transition as well?
It's always a risk. I think the good thing for us is that their defence isn't at its strongest, and even their midfield. You know, like defensively, I think it's there to be got at, and it's without question they have outstanding ability up top. And Madueke is someone who, you know, last season he kind of found it quite tough to get into the squad, and now he seems to be that choice winger on that side. And I mean, and that left side is ridiculous. It's always as what Mudryk, Neto, who else am I thinking of? Sancho. And they've got, you know, centre forward and Cuckoo who can play either side as well. So they've got an extremely versatile, quick, and, you know, technically strong attack. When you've got someone like Cole Palmer as well who can pull the strings and find players with the ease that he does, I think we've got to be on our A game. And, you know, if you're up against that pace and you're pressing up against it, all it takes is someone like Cucurella to play a long diagonal ball into space and you're on the back foot all of a sudden. So it is something we've got to be really aware of. But also, I think with that back line, there is the possibility to make mistakes when they're pressed. So we've just got to be aware that if we press as a unit and everyone is aware of their role.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, with how Chelsea build up as well, we almost kind of alluded to it with Cucurella being that inverting figure. And they will then look to play this kind of 3-2-5 formation when they do build up. So as you can see, 3 of the back 4 in shot there. So you've got Colwill, who's gone slightly more onto the left. You've got Fofana, who's in the middle as the other centre back. You've got Disasi, who is the right back, going into almost form that box 3. You've got the 2 midfield pivots of Caicedo and his name's Alodin Viega, and then you've got Cucurella in this next shot. If we just move it forwards, there we go. So this is just a frame after. So if we go back, 6 minutes 56. 6 seconds later, they try and play through. They lose the ball, and this is where we can hurt teams badly because our right-hand side is extremely strong with Wan-Bissaka and Kudus or Bowen on that side. And you can see here what they tried to do. You know, you can see the position of Cole Palmer closest to you on the screen on that circled line. You've got Cucurella, who's so far, he's almost on the halfway line, inverting as a midfielder. And then what they do is they keep their left winger. In this case, it was Neto in the first half on the left-hand side. Very, very high and very, very wide, almost on the touchline with the managers there. You can see just how wide it is. We can really hurt Chelsea in transitions if we can force turnovers. And, you know, it's such a big thing for Lopetegui, forcing those turnovers in those sort of moments. So I think there's going to be 2 key battles. Like you say, we have to make sure the press is right and we don't let Cole Palmer find those situations where they are building up from the back and Cucurella's gone into invert because they do have the technical players to hurt us and get through us. However, if we get it right and we prevent that from happening, the transition threat on that right-hand side is something that could be massive for us because Cucurella, if he's going in field and leaving that space vacant for someone like Kudus to dribble into or Bowen, we're going to get a lot of joy down that side. And I don't think, as you say, I don't think the midfield double pivot of Caicedo and Viega is enough to stop someone like Kudus or Bowen or, you know, we just have to dominate Chelsea in that midfield, and then the spaces will open up once they've kind of done their inversion and we've turned that over. So is that an area you're looking as well, Slough, as something to get at Chelsea? Obviously, we need to be careful when they do have possession because, as we say, they've got the technical players to invert and, play the system under Maresca, but the gaps there look huge if we can turn it over as well.
That's definitely something that I'm hoping we're targeting. But my big worry at the moment is do we have a striker to lead that press? And I think we've been very rightly critical of Lopetegui in his selection, and I would look at this, and if we were to start with Antonio up top, I just worry that there's not going to be any work rate there. And I'm not saying that just because of the Fulham game. I'm saying that because he was really poor against Crystal Palace. He was really poor against Manchester City. And I think that, as we mentioned, if you're leading that press, you have to be on it. You have to be working constantly. And we just haven't seen that from him. So yeah. I'm kind of hoping that if we put either Kudus or Bowen up top, that then gives me a lot more confidence that we're going to be doing that. But it is just a question of, are we going to make sure we're leading from that? Are those changes going to be made? Because otherwise, I do worry for us against Chelsea.
Yeah, 100%. And we can see here Chelsea's goal against Bournemouth actually came from an inversion and a 1v1 isolation. This time it was Sancho on the left-hand side. He played the ball into Nkunku eventually, who did really well to get past the Bournemouth centre-backs and score. And you can see there in the middle where Cucurella is on the pitch, there will be space for us to transition with someone like Kudus on that right-hand side. And, as you say, it's going to depend on who's playing striker. I feel like it might be Bowen unless Fulcrook's back. But it also, does it kind of place a little bit more importance for you, Sloth, on Wan-Bissaka and Emerson starting? Because if Kufal comes in, what we've seen here, Chelsea's 1v1 play often comes down this left-hand side where Cucurella inverts like this, whether it's Sancho, whether it's Neto. That's where they try and isolate, and there's a lot of space one-on-one. We know Wan-Bissaka is one of the best fullbacks defensively in the league in 1v1 situations, so it almost negates a lot of that risk that Chelsea possess when they do that. If Emerson's not fit, we will expect Wan-Bissaka to go left back, and then Kufal's kind of responsibility is that job. So does it place a little bit more importance on, the former Chelsea player and Emerson to be fit for this game?
I definitely think so. Look, we've got to go into it with our strongest lineup regardless, because Chelsea have so much outstanding quality that they can hurt you in individual moments, but as soon as you switch off, and let's face it, if there's one thing that West Ham do, it's switch off at times. And I think that Emerson on that left-hand side, he's going to have to have a mixture of that perfect balance of defense and attack. And, the sort of level of performance we saw against Fiorentina in the final, when he was on absolutely everything, but willing to carry the ball up the pitch and give an outlet at every single moment. And Wan-Bissaka is not going to be as likely to give you that outlet, but in the games that we've seen so far in a West Ham shirt, although they've been mixed, he has been looking to get forward more. So I think that obviously Wan-Bissaka is going to know Sancho quite well from his time at Manchester United. And hopefully he's kind of got a bit of an idea about how he's going to play. He does look like a man rejuvenated. I'd say even in his body language, he looks much happier. And
I think with if Sancho's playing left wing, I'll be happy. This may come back to bite me, but if Sancho's playing against Wan-Bissaka, I'm happy with that. There's no way Sancho's taking on Wan-Bissaka in a duel or in a race or outside. We know with Sancho he's going to come inside. He might be a problem on the ball, connecting with, say, Cole Palmer, but in terms of that 1v1 threat going outside him or anything like that, I got Wan-Bissaka all day long. That does not worry me at all.
I admire your confidence.
I just don't think that's Sancho's game. I don't think he's a 1v1 winger at all. I think he's a better,
but I think he is
player.
He has outstanding moments of quality, and whether that's just making sure he gets an extra yard to play through a ball, deliver a cross, or even just release a shot. I think Wan-Bissaka switched off against Fulham, and if he does anything like that against Sancho, Sancho's got the quality to hurt you.
Who would you rather start left? Who would you rather us come up against, Neto or Sancho, for that left wing spot to start with? Mate, Sancho. I'd rather Sancho all day.
I think I would, just because Wan-Bissaka knows him more. Like he's maybe going to have a bit more of a knowledge about how he plays, but they're both outstanding wingers, and we haven't even spoken about Mudryk. You know, it's
yeah, true.
It's if they decide to play him, then it's wheels, isn't it?
He'd scare me more than Sancho.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. See, I'm not as confident as you against Sancho. I think a confident Sancho is something you've really got to be worried about, because if he has the mindset, and if he has one good go at Wan-Bissaka early on, I think it's very worrying. But
I mean, we saw it with the goal against Bournemouth. He got the assist. He came inside from that 1v1 position. But I just think over a 90-minute game, if Sancho's starting left wing and is almost said to be that touchline winger, I just don't think that's his game. If he's in and around with Cole Palmer more centrally, that's when we could have an issue, because he's got the technical ability to link up with those players. But I just think, Bournemouth's a lot smaller pitch compared to West Ham as well. So if Sancho's going to be quite high and wide, it's going to negate a lot of his strengths as a footballer.
I think you're definitely right on that. I think that the problem with that is that Bournemouth were outstanding in the first half, and they probably should have been 1 or 2 goals up regardless.
So many chances throughout the game, so many.
So I think if we can take one of those chances, it may well be a case of heads drop. But I'm just hoping that if they play in a similar way, we're able to capitalise on it, because I think a goal for, as I say, a lead, a goal to get us ahead is going to give our side a lot of confidence. But
there's goals in this game, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just hoping it's not like a thumping that we've not had as of yet. But it would be the West Ham way, wouldn't it, to go into a London derby and just get absolutely belted.
Well, there is pressure on us. We've lost both of our opening home Premier League games so far. Granted, it was Aston Villa and Man City, but there's no excuses in this league. You've got to perform, and a home derby against Chelsea, who we've seen pretty good results against recently. We should be going into this with confidence, and I do think there's going to be definitely opportunities for West Ham in this game, but as you say, just it depends on how we are defensively and what midfield we go with. And we're going to do a separate video on our lineup compared to this, which should come out tomorrow, the day you're seeing this. But in terms of Chelsea's lineup, this is what we can probably expect based on how they've been playing. There might be a couple of switches. As you say, they've got the likes of Nkunku, they've got Neto, they've got João Felix. They've got some fantastic players that could easily slot in and start for Chelsea. This is kind of how they're structured right now. Right back is Disasi, because Gusto and James have been injured. Cucurella, Colwill, Fofana, the other back three, with Vega, Caicedo double pivot. Palmer playing as the number 10. And then, I think the attack is where we'll probably see some changes. I've gone with Sancho to start over Neto in this game compared to Bournemouth, because I think that's what Maresca might do, given his impact he had against Bournemouth last weekend. Similar to Nkunku, I can see him also starting over, say, someone like Nicholas Jackson. But João Felix, Nkunku, Neto, all of these players, they've got some fantastic options, which we're going to have to be very switched on to. But with all that said, stuff, all the tactical stuff done, we've kind of spoken about how we can hurt Chelsea, what we need to be cautious of. What's your score prediction going into this London derby? Early kickoff on a Saturday to start the weekend, hopefully with 3 points.
I am not massively confident after Fulkrug's injury, after seeing Antonio's performance. I'm a bit worried. I'm kind of hoping that we start with either Bowen up top or Kudus. I think if we do that, there's goals there. I think maybe we could nick it 2-1, but I think if we start with Antonio, we'll be out by 45 minutes. I think maybe that's just negative, but I think it could be 2-1, 3-1.
So what are you going with?
Ooh. Do you know what? I'm going to go 2-1 West Ham just because. Just because.
Yeah. No, I was
It's a
thinking the
game.
same. I was going with a 2-1 win as well. I think there's enough here for us to hurt them, and I think if we get it right and the lineup's correct, and you know we're switched on from the start to how Chelsea are going to play, there's going to be gaps for us. But as you say, just defensively, Chelsea have got so much talent, and they can hurt you in a moment. They could play rubbish and score 2 really good goals, and that'll be it. And it's going to be a difficult game, but it's one we have to take to Chelsea being at home. The pressure might start to ramp up on Lopetegui if we kind of sit back too much, because I think against Man City in the first half we did that. Second half we were a bit more explorative, and you know we were arguably unlucky in that game as
I
well.
think if we start the game against Chelsea like we did against City, then
Yeah, that opening few minutes, yeah,
we could get a goal early on and really make it an atmosphere. But it's all ifs and buts at the moment, isn't it? And I think that the big issue is going to be who starts, because I hate sounding like I'm going on against him, but I've just not been impressed with Antonio at all. And I think if we start with him, it's going to be. I think the fans are going to be on Lopetegui's back.
There's a few big decisions he's got to make for this, you know, around Mavropanos, Souček, Antonio, as you mentioned. So yeah, we're going to do our lineup video separately, but yeah, those are our predictions. That's the analysis breakdown. If you enjoyed it, make sure to leave a like on the video and subscribe, and let us know your score predictions down below in the comments. It's a big London derby, and hopefully we can get 3 points to start the weekend off strong. And yeah, if you enjoyed, leave a like, and we'll be back for another video very shortly. And Sloth, until the next one.
Come on, you eyes.